The beast struck without warning. Zalika's hands moved faster than thought, yanking the child backward as clawed fingers raked the air where his head had been. The creature, half man, half monster, howled in rage and confusion, its twisted face caught between human grief and animal fury. Blood dripped from its mouth. Not the child's blood, its own. It had been chewing through its own flesh, again. "Run, Davu," Zalika's voice cut through the chaos. "Get to the village, now!" The boy's legs finally remembered how to move. He bolted toward the distant cooking fires of Bakari village, his screams piercing the twilight. The beast lunged after him, but Rafiki exploded from the shadows, 600 pounds of golden fury. The lion's roar shook the earth. The creature stumbled backward, whimpering. Zalika stepped between them, her hands raised, her voice dropping to something ancient and wordless. The beast's yellow eyes locked onto hers. Recognition flickered there, just for a heartbeat. Then it turned and crashed back into the forest, leaving only broken branches and the metallic scent of blood. This wasn't the first attack this week. It wouldn't be the last. But 3 months ago, Zalika's life had been different. Quieter. Before Bakari. Before she'd broken her own rules and let herself hope again. If you want to know how a girl ends up standing between a monster and a village, how she comes to eat only raw meat while lions guard her sleep, you'll need to stay until the end. Subscribe now because this story gets darker before it finds the light. Hit that like button if you're ready for a tale of magic, curses, and the kind of love that refuses to let go. Zalika had arrived in Bakari on a morning thick with red dust and the smell of roasting maize. The village women had been grinding millet outside their huts, their rhythmic pounding creating a percussion that echoed off the acacia trees. Children chased chickens through the compound while men repaired fishing nets under the shade of the great baobab tree. Everything was normal. Everything was as it should be. Then the lion stepped out of the forest. Mama Asha dropped her grinding stone. It cracked against the hard earth, splitting clean in two. Her scream caught in her throat as the massive male padded into the village center, his black-tipped mane rippling in the morning breeze. Behind him walked a young woman, tall and lean, carrying nothing but a woven basket and a walking stick. "Please," Zalika said quietly. "We mean no harm." Elder Jabari rose from his seat beneath the baobab, his joints protesting. 70 years of life had taught him to measure threats carefully. The lion's posture was calm, almost protective. The girl's eyes held no malice, only exhaustion so deep it seemed carved into her bones. "You walk with death itself," Jabari said. "Why should we not drive you back into the forest?" "Because I know things that could help you." Zalika's voice was steady. "I know which herbs stop bleeding, which roots cure fever. I know why your cattle have been dying near the eastern water source. The soil there is poisoned. Move them north." The village hunter, Kofi, stepped forward with his spear. "Lions don't befriend humans. What witchcraft is this?" "No witchcraft, just trust. Rafiki has been with me since he was a cub. I found him after hunters killed his mother." Zalika reached out, scratching behind the lion's ears. Rafiki's eyes half closed in contentment. "He knows I'd never hurt him. He knows I'm safe." A small boy, no more than 6, wiggled free from his mother's grip and approached. Davu's eyes were wide with wonder, not fear. "Can I touch him?" "Davu, no!" Mama Asha lunged forward, but Zalika raised a hand. "He can decide," Zalika said softly. "Rafiki, what do you think?" The lion regarded the boy for a long moment, then lowered his massive head. Davu's small hand disappeared into the dark mane. A smile split his face. "He's warm," Davu whispered. "Like sunshine." Elder Jabari studied them both, then nodded slowly. "You may stay. 3 days. If the spirits permit, longer. but the lion stays outside the sleeping compound. Agreed, Zalika said. Thank you, Elder. That evening, the village gathered for the communal meal. Women brought calabashes of groundnut stew, roasted sweet potatoes, grilled tilapia from the river, and fresh bread still steaming from the fire. The smell made Zalika's stomach turn, though she kept her face neutral. Mama Asha ladled a generous portion of stew into a bowl and thrust it towards Zalika. Eat, child. You look half-starved. I'm grateful, but I can't. The conversations around them died. 20 pairs of eyes turned toward Zalika. You refuse our hospitality. Kofi's voice held an edge. You insult us. Never. Zalika reached into her basket, pulling out a bundle wrapped in leaves. Inside were chunks of raw antelope meat, still red and glistening. This is what I eat. Only this. Horrified silence. You eat like an animal? A woman named Nima whispered. Raw flesh? Yes, along with raw fruits, raw vegetables, raw fish. Nothing cooked, nothing touched by fire. Zalika pulled out a mango and bit into it, juice running down her chin. Fire changes food, makes it something my body can't accept anymore. Why? Davu asked, his voice cutting through the uncomfortable quiet. Why doesn't your body like cooked food? Zalika met the child's eyes and saw only curiosity there. No judgment, no disgust, just a question waiting for an answer. Because something changed me, she said. A long time ago, something I can't undo. What changed you? Magic, Zalika said simply. I drank magic and it remade me from the inside out. Elder Jabari leaned forward. There are old stories, stories of a hidden river deep in the forest where the trees grow so thick that sunlight never touches the ground. They say the water there holds the voices of ancient spirits. They say one sip grants gifts beyond imagining. They also say the price is terrible. The stories are true, Zalika confirmed, every word. She took another bite of raw meat, chewing slowly. Around her, the villagers pretended to resume eating, but their eyes kept darting back to her, fascinated and repelled in equal measure. The days that followed brought an uneasy acceptance. Zalika proved useful. She identified the poisonous plant contaminating the eastern water source, set a broken arm with such skill that the bone healed straight and strong, and taught the children which forest berries were safe and which brought death. The villagers began to soften, but they couldn't ignore the strangeness. Every morning, Zalika would disappear into the forest and return with her basket filled with raw provisions. Birds would land on her shoulders, bringing seeds and insects. Monkeys would hang from her arms, chattering in what almost sounded like conversation. And always, Rafiki walked beside her like a golden shadow. 2 weeks after her arrival, Davu found Zalika sitting by the river at dawn. She was gutting a fish with a sharp stone, her movements practiced and efficient. "Can you teach me?" he asked. "To clean fish? To talk to animals? Like you do?" Zalika smiled sadly. "I don't talk to them with words. I understand them because I'm different now. The magic made me hear things others can't, feel things others don't." "The magic from the river?" "Yes." "Tell me about it," Davu said, settling onto the riverbank beside her. "Please, no one else will talk about magic. They say it's dangerous." Zalika studied the boy's eager face. He reminded her of someone she'd lost. "All right," she said quietly. "But this story doesn't have a happy middle. Are you sure you want to hear it?" "I'm brave," Davu said, puffing out his narrow chest. "I touched a lion, didn't I?" So Zalika told him, and as she spoke, other villagers began to gather, drawn by the sound of her voice. By the time she finished, the sun had climbed high, and the entire village sat listening, their morning work forgotten. She had grown up in a village called Umoja, 2 weeks' walk to the east. Her parents had been healers, teaching her and her younger brother Jengo everything they knew about herbs, bones, and the subtle ways the body spoke its pain. Jengo had been small for his age, quick-minded and restless, always asking questions that had no easy answers. "Why do people die?" he'd asked once, watching their father wrap a corpse for burial. "Why can't we fix death?" "Because some things are beyond our power," their father had said. "We heal what we can, we accept what we cannot." But Jengo had never been good at acceptance. When Zalika was 12 and Jengo was 9, they'd been sent to collect medicinal roots from the deep forest. Their mother had warned them to stay on the path, to be home before dark, to avoid the forbidden zones where the trees grew strange and twisted. They'd promised. They'd meant it. But then Jengo had spotted something glinting through the undergrowth, a flash of silver light that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. He'd left the path before Zalika could stop him, crashing through ferns and vines toward the source. She'd followed, cursing his name, her healer's bag bouncing against her hip. The river had been impossible. That was the only word for it. Impossible. It flowed upward in places, the water defying gravity to cascade over rocks in the wrong direction. It glowed silver-white, bright enough to hurt the eyes, and the sound it made wasn't the normal rush and babble of water over stone. It sang, actually sang, in harmonies that made Zalika's teeth ache and her skin prickle. "We shouldn't be here," she'd whispered. "Jengo, we need to leave, now." But her brother was already kneeling at the water's edge, cupping his hands to drink. "Don't!" Zalika grabbed his shoulder, yanking him back. "You heard the stories. This has to be the Forbidden River. The one the elders warned us about." "Stories," Jengo scoffed. "Just stories to keep us afraid." "Look at it, Zalika. It's beautiful. Don't you want to know what it tastes like?" "No. I want to go home." A voice had filled the clearing then, coming from everywhere and nowhere. It wasn't sound exactly, more like a pressure against her thoughts, words forming directly in her mind. "Two come seeking, but only one may drink, one gift, one price. Choose with care, little ones." Zalika's blood had turned to ice. Jengo's eyes had widened, finally showing the fear he should have felt from the beginning. "What does that mean?" Jengo whispered. "What kind of gift?" "It means we leave," Zalika said firmly. "Now, before—" But she'd been too late. Jengo had already made his choice. While she'd been speaking, he dipped his hands into that glowing water and brought them to his lips. He drunk deeply, his throat working, his eyes closing in ecstasy. "Jengo, no!" The change wasn't immediate. For 3 days, nothing seemed wrong. Jengo complained of strange dreams, dreams where he ran on 4 legs through the forest, where the scent of blood made his mouth water, where human speech sounded like meaningless noise. Their parents had dismissed it as fever thoughts, giving him bitter teas and cool compresses. On the 4th day, Jengo woke up screaming. His hands had started to change, the fingers curling into claws, dark fur sprouting from his knuckles. His teeth lengthened into fangs, his spine arched and cracked, reshaping itself into something that could run on 2 legs or 4. Their mother had grabbed Zalika, shaking her. "What happened? What did you do in the forest?" Through tears, Zalika told them everything. The hidden river, the voice, Jengo drinking the water. "You fool," their father had breathed. "You absolute fool. That river has been forbidden for 100 generations. The spirits there don't give gifts. They curse." "But the voice said one of us could drink," Zalika protested. "It said 1 gift. 1. Their mother's voice cracked. 1. And your brother took it. So what do you think happens to the second person who drinks? What do you think the spirits do to rule breakers?" The transformation had taken 3 more days. By the end, Jengo could barely speak. His words came out garbled, mixed with growls and snarls. His mind was fracturing, human thoughts drowning under animal instinct. He'd attacked their father during dinner, tearing flesh from bone before Zalika managed to pull him off. "He's too dangerous," Kofi had said. "No, wait, that wasn't right. A different Kofi, the hunter from Umoja, not Bakari. We have to kill him before he hurts someone else." "He's my brother," Zalika had screamed. "He's still in there. I can see him." But she'd been wrong, or right. She still didn't know. That night, Jengo had fled into the forest, moving on all fours, howling like a wounded animal. Zalika had tried to follow, but her parents had held her back. "Let him go," her mother had wept. "Let the forest have him. At least he'll be free there." Free. What a cruel word. Their parents had never recovered from the loss. Grief had eaten them from the inside, turning them hollow and brittle. Within a year, both were dead. Her father from a fever he didn't fight, her mother from simply losing the will to wake up one morning. Zalika had been 13, alone, and consumed by guilt so profound it felt like drowning. So she'd done the only thing that made sense. She'd gone back to the river. The spirits had been waiting. "You return, little one. Why?" "I want to understand," Zalika had said. "I want to know what happened to my brother. And I want to drink." Foolish. The gift was offered once, taken once. There are no more gifts here for your bloodline. Then let me trade. Let me take his curse instead. Change me however you want, just give him back his mind. The spirits had laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "It doesn't work that way. What's done is done. But you intrigue us, persistent child. Very well. Drink. Not from mercy, but because we wish to see what you'll become." The water had burned going down. It had tasted like lightning and honey, like everything Zalika had ever wanted and everything she'd feared. Her body had convulsed, changing on a cellular level. When she'd woken 3 days later in a cave she didn't remember entering, everything was different. She could hear the heartbeat of a rabbit 50 paces away, could smell the difference between fear sweat and exertion sweat on human skin, could understand the chittering of squirrels, the calls of birds, the low rumbles that big cats used to mark territory. The forest had opened to her like a book, every living thing suddenly comprehensible. But cooked food made her violently ill. Just the smell of it turned her stomach. Fire became her enemy. She could eat only what the earth provided in its raw form: meat, fish, fruit, vegetables, all consumed as nature intended. Voices echoed in Zalika's skull. "The cursed one speaks truly. The transformation nears completion. Soon he will be only beast, no man remaining. This is the consequence of breaking our law." "Then you and break it," Zalika shouted. "Change your law, show mercy." "Laws are not changed for individual suffering. The river's magic has rules for a reason." "Then I'll make you a deal. Take my gift back. Take everything you gave me. Reverse what you did to me and use that power to heal him instead." "Impossible. Once drunk, the water's effects are permanent. We cannot undo what has been drunk." "But you changed him after he drank. You cursed him specifically because he broke your rule, so you can affect him after the fact. You're choosing not to help." The spirits flickered, seeming almost uncertain for the first time. "You make a valid point, little one. We did add to his curse as punishment. Therefore, theoretically, we could subtract from it as well." "Then do it, please. He was 9 years old when he drank. 9. He didn't understand what he was doing. He didn't mean to break your law." "Ignorance is not innocence." "Maybe not, but cruelty isn't justice either." Jengo made a choking sound, half sob, half growl. Zalika could see him fighting for control, fighting to stay present in the conversation. The effort carved lines of strain into his half-human face. More villagers had arrived, keeping careful distance but watching intently. Elder Jabari stepped forward, his weathered hand gripping his walking stick. "Great spirits," he said formally. "I am Jabari, elder of Bakari village. I speak for my people when I say this. We intend to journey to your river tomorrow. We intend to ask, to beg, for mercy for this cursed boy. We understand laws, we respect them. But we also understand that the highest law is compassion, that the strongest magic is love. Will you at least hear our petition?" The spirits swirled, conferring in visual patterns of light and shadow. Finally, they spoke. "Very well. Come to the river. Bring your offerings, your words, your intentions. We will listen, but we promise nothing. Understand?" "Understood," Jabari said. "And the beast must come too," the spirits added. "He must face judgment willingly." Zalika looked at Jengo. "Will you come tomorrow? Will you trust me one more time?" The creature that had been her brother stood silently for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. "Tomorrow," he rasped. Then he turned and fled back into the forest, moving faster than any human could track. The spirits faded. The night returned to normal, but nothing would ever be the same. Zalika turned to find the entire village staring at her. She braced for anger, for blame, for rejection. Instead, Mama Asha spoke. "Everyone get some sleep. We have a long journey tomorrow and we'll need our strength. Zalika, come eat. I don't care if you can only stomach raw food. You need calories." The simple kindness broke something in Zalika's chest. She nodded, not trusting her voice. As the villagers dispersed, Davu approached hesitantly. "Thank you," he whispered, "for saving me." "Always," Zalika said, ruffling his hair. "That's what family does." "Is he really your brother? That thing?" "Yes. And he's still in there, Davu. You heard him speak. He's fighting so hard to stay human. We just need to give him a reason to keep fighting." The boy nodded solemnly, then scampered back to his mother's side. Zalika watched him go and felt something shift inside her. Purpose, direction, hope. Tomorrow they'd face the spirits. Tomorrow they'd fight for Jengo's soul. Tonight, she'd rest. Dawn came cold and gray, mist clinging to the ground like restless ghosts. The volunteers assembled in the village center, each carrying supplies for the journey: water skins, dried fruit, woven mats for sleeping. Zalika carried only her walking stick and determination. Rafiki appeared from the forest as if summoned, taking his place at her side. Several villagers flinched, but no one protested anymore. The lion had proved himself an ally. Elder Jabari raised his staff. "We go not as conquerors, but as supplicants. We go not with demands, but with hope. The forest spirits are ancient and powerful. Show them respect, show them sincerity, and perhaps they'll show us mercy." The journey took 2 days of hard travel. Zalika led them through game trails and hidden paths, places where human feet rarely trod. The forest grew denser, darker, the trees pressing close like eavesdroppers. Strange sounds echoed from the canopy, whistles and clicks that weren't quite bird calls, rustlings that suggested things too large to be squirrels. On the second evening, they made camp near a grove of trees that grew in a perfect circle, their branches interweaving overhead to form a natural dome. Mama Asha prepared a fire while Kofi checked the perimeter. The other villagers settled onto their mats, exhausted but determined. Zalika sat apart, eating raw berries and watching the forest, waiting. He came just after midnight. Jengo emerged from the shadows like a nightmare given flesh, his form even more twisted than before. The transformation was accelerating. His spine had curved further, making upright walking difficult. His face had elongated into something almost lupine, but his eyes, those yellow, tortured eyes, still held fragments of human awareness. "I came," he managed. As promised. Thank you, Zalika breathed. Thank you for trusting me. The villagers woke to find the beast sitting 20 paces from their camp, motionless as stone. Several gasped. Kofi reached for his spear. Peace, Jabari commanded. He came of his own will. He's here to seek healing, not to hunt. How do we know that? Kofi demanded. How do we know he won't slaughter us in our sleep? Because I won't, Jengo said, the words coming easier this morning, as if he'd been practicing. Because my sister believes in me, because I'm so tired of being a monster. The raw pain in his voice silenced all objections. They reached the river by noon. It was exactly as Zalika remembered. Impossible, beautiful, terrifying. The water flowed upward in places, glowing with that same silver-white light. The singing filled the air, harmonies that made reality feel thin and flexible. The spirits materialized immediately, their translucent forms towering over the assembled humans. You came. We are surprised. It has been many generations since humans approached us with offerings and humility. Elder Jabari stepped forward, kneeling. The other villagers followed his lead, even proud Kofi bending his knee. Great spirits, Jabari said, we come seeking mercy for one who broke your law unknowingly. We acknowledge the transgression. We respect your authority. But we beg you to see past the letter of the law to its spirit. This boy was a child when he drank. He didn't understand the consequences, and he's suffered beyond measure for his mistake. Suffering is the point of punishment, the spirits replied. How else do rules maintain meaning? But what purpose does his suffering serve? Mama Asha spoke up, her voice shaking but clear. Who benefits from his pain? Not you, your spirits beyond such concerns. Not us. We gain nothing from his monstrousness. Not him. He's losing himself piece by piece. What cosmic balance is maintained by destroying a child's soul? The spirits swirled, seeming agitated. The law states that only one may drink. He was the second. The curse was automatic, not personal. Then make it personal, Zalika said, standing. Look at him. Really look. See who he was, who he's trying so hard to still be. And ask yourselves, is this justice, or is it just cruelty wearing justice's mask? Davu stood too, his small voice piping up. My grandmother always said that rules should serve people, not the other way around. She said wisdom is knowing when to bend and when to break, is keeping your law worth destroying a good person. More villagers added their voices, a chorus of plea and prayer. They spoke of Jengo's childhood, of his curiosity and brightness. They spoke of Zalika's years of lonely searching. They spoke of community, family, second chances. The spirits listened, and something changed in the quality of their presence, a softening, a consideration that hadn't been there before. You make compelling arguments, they admitted, and your unity is unexpected. Most who come to us come alone, seeking power for themselves. You come together, seeking healing for another. This is notable. Does that mean you'll help him? Zalika asked, barely daring to hope. We cannot fully reverse the curse. The magic has taken root too deeply. Your brother has lived as a beast for 5 years. That cannot be simply erased. Zalika's hope guttered like a candle in wind. But, the spirits continued, we can halt the progression. We can restore his human form and mind. He will retain some marks of his curse. He will need to eat raw food as you do. His senses will remain heightened, his strength greater than normal humans. But he will be able to speak, think, live as a person rather than a monster. Yes, Zalika gasped. Yes, please, that's enough. That's more than enough. There is a price, the spirits warned. There is always a price. Name it. Whatever you want, it's yours. Not from you, from him. The spirits turned their attention to Jengo, who had remained crouched at the water's edge throughout the discussion. The price is acceptance. You must choose this, must accept these scars willingly, must promise to never seek the river's magic again, for yourself or others, must live knowing you'll always be marked by your mistake. Can you accept these terms? Jengo's twisted face contorted with emotion, relief, gratitude, grief. When he spoke, his voice was clearer than it had been in years. I accept. God help me, I accept. I'd pay any price to come back, to be me again. Then drink, the spirits commanded, one final time. Let this be the last magic your bloodline takes from this place. Jengo crawled to the water's edge. His clawed hands scooped up the glowing liquid. He drank deeply, and the transformation began immediately. It looked agonizing. His body spasmed, bones grinding and reshaping. Fur receded into skin, fangs shortened into normal teeth. His spine straightened, his hands reformed, his face became human again. The process took minutes that felt like hours, every second marked by groans and whimpers of pain. When it finally ended, a young man lay gasping on the riverbank. He was thin, scarred, naked, and utterly human. Zalika ran to him, throwing her arms around his shoulders, sobbing into his hair. Jengo, Jengo, you're back. You're really back. Zalika, he whispered, his voice hoarse but unmistakably his own. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, for everything. For drinking when you told me not to, for becoming that thing, for making you search for 5 years. Stop. Zalika pulled back, gripping his shoulders. Stop apologizing. You were 9 years old. You made a child's mistake, and you've paid for it 1,000 times over. No more guilt. Not for either of us. We start over. Right now. Today. Mama Asha hurried forward with a woven cloth, draping it around Jengo's shoulders to preserve his modesty. He clutched it gratefully, his hands trembling. Thank you, he said to the assembled villagers. All of you. You didn't know me, didn't owe me anything. But you came anyway. You stood up to spirits for a stranger. I don't have words for what that means. Family isn't always blood, Elder Jabari said gently. Sometimes it's the people who show up when everything's burning down. Welcome to Bakari, Jengo. We're glad to have you. The spirits began to fade, their forms dissolving into mist. Wait, Zalika called. Why did you change your minds? Really? After 5 years of refusing me, what made the difference? The spirits paused, their voices softer now. You were alone before. One voice crying in the wilderness. Easy to ignore even when that voice was righteous. But today you came with community, with witnesses, with others willing to vouch for the worth of one cursed soul. That kind of unity, that kind of collective love. It's rare, powerful. It reminded us why we guard this magic in the first place. Not to punish, but to protect. Not to destroy, but to maintain balance. You showed us that sometimes mercy is balance, that compassion can be justice. And, another spirit voice added, almost amused, the small one made an excellent point. Rules should serve people. We'd forgotten that. So consider this our own learning, our own growth. Even spirits can evolve. Then they were gone, leaving only the singing river and the stunned humans on its banks. The journey back took 3 days instead of 2. Jengo was weak, stumbling frequently, his newly human body unaccustomed to walking upright after so long on all fours. The villagers took turns supporting him, offering raw fruit and water, speaking gently about inconsequential things to help ground him in humanity. On the second night, as they camped under stars so bright they seemed close enough to touch, Jengo sat beside Zalika and spoke quietly. I remember pieces, he said, from when I was that thing. I remember you finding me that first time, trying to talk to me. I wanted to respond so badly, but the words wouldn't come. just growls and snarls. It was like being trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake from. "I'm sorry I couldn't find you sooner," Zalika said. "I searched everywhere." "Stop. Your own words, remember? No more guilt." Jengo smiled slightly. "Besides, you found me when it mattered. Right before, I would have been lost completely. The spirit said I had maybe weeks left before the human part of me disappeared entirely. You saved me, just in time." "We saved you," Zalika corrected, gesturing at the sleeping villagers around them. "All of us together." "Together," Jengo repeated wonderingly. I'd forgotten what that felt like, being part of something bigger than myself, having people care whether I lived or died. Rafiki padded over and settled beside Jengo, resting his huge head on the young man's lap. Jengo froze in surprise. "He likes you," Zalika said, grinning. "That's rare. He's picky about humans. He remembers me, maybe. From before. I used to love animals." Jengo cautiously stroked the lion's mane. "Used to spend hours watching birds, tracking deer, trying to befriend every stray dog in Umoja. Mother said I'd grow up to be a great hunter or a terrible farmer, because I'd never have the heart to kill anything I'd named." "You can still be that person," Zalika said softly. "The curse took years from you, but it didn't take who you are at your core. You're still Jengo. Still my curious, compassionate, sometimes reckless little brother. Not so little anymore. No, not so little." They sat in comfortable silence, watching embers from the fire spiral upward into the night sky. Around them, the forest breathed and shifted, no longer threatening but simply alive. If you've made it this far, you've witnessed something powerful, a story of curses broken not by individual heroism, but by collective compassion. That's the kind of magic that changes worlds. Hit that subscribe button if stories like this resonate with you. Drop a comment below telling me what you'd sacrifice for family. And like this video if you believe love and community can overcome even ancient magic. Your support helps me bring more stories like this to life. They reached Bakari on the 4th day after leaving the river, emerging from the forest trail to find half the village waiting at the edge of the compound. Word had somehow traveled ahead, perhaps through hunters who'd seen them passing, or through that mysterious communication network that seemed to exist between villages even without modern technology. The reception was cautiously welcoming. People stared at Jengo with a mixture of curiosity and lingering fear, but when Elder Jabari formally introduced him and vouched for his transformation, the tension eased. "He will live among us," Jabari announced. "He will work, contribute, be part of our community. We helped save him. Now we help him rebuild his life. Any objections?" Silence. Then Mama Asha stepped forward with a bowl of raw vegetables and fish. "You'll be hungry," she said simply, offering it to Jengo. "Welcome home." That broke the ice. Other villagers approached, offering greetings and small gifts. Davu brought a hand-carved wooden lion, proudly presenting it to Jengo. "I made it for you," the boy said, "so you'd remember you're not a beast anymore. You're a person, like the rest of us." Jengo accepted it with tears in his eyes. "Thank you. I'll treasure this." The following weeks brought adjustment and healing. Jengo struggled initially with basic tasks. His hands remembered being claws. His mind remembered thinking in images and sense rather than words. But slowly, steadily, he relearned what it meant to be human. He and Zalika fell into a routine. Every morning they'd walk to the river together, not the magical one, just the normal village river, and she'd teach him skills he'd lost. How to fish with patience instead of pouncing. How to prepare raw food properly, removing bones and skin, cutting meat into manageable portions. How to read people's emotions from their faces instead of their fear scent. In return, Jengo taught the village children about the forest. He showed them animal tracks, explained migration patterns, demonstrated how to move quietly through undergrowth without disturbing the wildlife. His curse had left him with enhanced senses and strength. The spirits promised marks, and he used these gifts to help rather than harm. Kofi the hunter became an unexpected ally. He'd been skeptical at first, but watching Jengo track a wounded leopard that had been threatening the village's cattle, seeing how Jengo calmed the injured animal and treated its infected paw rather than killing it, changed his mind. "You have a gift," Kofi admitted grudgingly. "Not the curse, the actual you, the way you understand animals. That's valuable." "Maybe the curse gave me that," Jengo said quietly. "Maybe some good came from all that darkness. I can live with that. Turn the scars into something useful." As the weeks turned to months, both siblings found something they'd lost years ago: peace. Zalika no longer woke in the middle of the night, frantically searching the darkness for threats. She laughed more, smiled easier, let herself be drawn into village games and celebrations. The constant tension that had carved lines into her young face gradually softened. Jengo filled out, gaining muscle and healthy weight. His eyes lost their haunted look. He began telling jokes, teasing Davu and the other children, participating in evening storytelling sessions where villagers shared myths and histories. One evening, 6 months after their return from the river, the entire village gathered for a celebration. A young couple was getting married, and the festivities included dancing, singing, and a feast that lasted until the stars came out. Zalika sat with Mama Asha, watching Jengo dance with a group of young people his age. He was laughing, fully present, utterly human. "You saved him," Mama Asha said softly. "Your refusal to give up. That's what made the difference." "We saved him," Zalika corrected. "You, Elder Jabari, Davu, Kofi, everyone who traveled to the river. I couldn't have done it alone. That's what I learned through all of this. Some battles require an army, not a hero." "Wise words from one so young." Mama Asha patted her hand. "You've grown up fast, haven't you? Too fast, probably. Maybe, but I'm grateful for where I ended up. For this village, for this family." Zalika smiled. "I spent 5 years wandering, isolated, eating with animals because I couldn't eat with people. I thought the curse made me wrong, made me unlovable, but you all proved that wrong. You accepted me exactly as I am, raw food, lion companion, strange past and all. That's what family does," Mama Asha said simply. "We accept. We adapt. We love anyway." Elder Jabari approached, moving slowly but steadily despite his age. "A word, Zalika." She followed him to the quiet space beneath the baobab tree, where important village discussions always took place. Rafiki trailed behind, ever-present guardian. "I'm old," Jabari began without preamble. "My bones ache. My eyes dim. Soon I'll join my ancestors, and the village will need new leadership." "You have years left," Zalika protested. "Perhaps, perhaps not. Either way, I've been watching you, watching how people come to you with problems, how you listen, advise, mediate disputes. You have wisdom beyond your years, earned through suffering but tempered by compassion. I want you to serve as my apprentice. Learn what I know about leadership, tradition, conflict resolution. When I'm gone, the village will need someone they trust, someone who understands both the old ways and new possibilities." Zalika stared at him, stunned. "Me? But I'm not even from here. I'm an outsider." "You stopped being an outsider the moment you asked for our help instead of demanding it. The moment you showed us that different doesn't mean wrong, that curses can be survived, that love multiplies when shared." Jabari smiled. "Besides, Jengo will need guidance too as he continues integrating. Who better to help both him and the village than you? I don't know what to say." Say yes. Say you'll try. That's all any of us can do. Zalika looked out at the celebration, at Jengo dancing, at children playing, at Mama Asha laughing with friends, at the whole beautiful, messy, complicated community that had embraced her when she needed it most. Yes, she said quietly. I'll try. Jabari's smile widened. Good. We start tomorrow. Tonight, though, you should dance. You've earned celebration. He shuffled away, leaving Zalika beneath the ancient tree. She stood there for a long moment, feeling the weight of responsibility settling onto her shoulders. But it wasn't crushing. It was grounding, purposeful. Jengo appeared at her elbow, slightly breathless from dancing. What did Elder Jabari want? He asked me to be his apprentice, to potentially lead the village one day. Jengo's eyes widened, then he grinned. That's perfect. You'd be amazing at that. You practically held our family together even when we were children, mediating between me and Father when I got into trouble, helping Mother organize the healing supplies. Leadership is in your blood. I'm scared, Zalika admitted. What if I fail? What if I make things worse? Then you'll learn and try again. That's what you taught me, remember? Failure isn't the end. Giving up is. Jengo nudged her shoulder. Besides, you won't be alone. You've got me. Mama Asha, Jabari, Kofi, Davu, the whole village. We'll figure things out together. Together, Zalika repeated, tasting the word. It still felt new, still felt precious. Now come on, Jengo said, grabbing her hand. Dance with me. We've got a lot of lost celebrations to make up for. She let him pull her into the firelight, into the circle of dancers, into the joy and noise and life. Rafiki watched from the shadows, his golden eyes reflecting the flames. Above, stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, indifferent and eternal. But here, in this small village, on this specific night, magic happened. Not the dangerous, unpredictable magic of cursed rivers and angry spirits. The everyday magic of people choosing to care for each other, choosing to show up, choosing to say, you belong here, to someone who'd been alone too long. That was the real transformation. Not the physical change that restored Jengo's humanity, but the internal change that taught both siblings they didn't have to carry their burdens alone. Years would pass, seasons would turn. Elder Jabari would eventually join his ancestors, and Zalika would indeed lead Bakari village, with Jengo as her advisor and protector. They'd face new challenges, droughts and disputes, illnesses and innovations. But they'd face them together, drawing strength from community rather than isolation. The story would be told and retold, becoming legend. The girl who ate with lions, the boy who was a beast, the village that chose love over fear. Parents would tell it to children as a lesson about compassion. Elders would reference it when discussing justice versus mercy. And travelers passing through would sometimes glimpse a woman with a lion by her side, or a man whose eyes held ancient wildness, and know they'd stumbled into a place where impossible things had once happened. But on this night, none of that future mattered. On this night, two siblings danced under stars, surrounded by people who'd become family, no longer defined by their curses, but by their choices. Zalika spun, laughing, her hand gripping Jengo's. The raw meat she'd eaten for dinner sat comfortably in her stomach. The enhanced senses that marked her as changed registered every heartbeat, every whispered conversation, every joyful shout. And for the first time since drinking that magical water, she didn't resent these differences. Didn't wish she could be normal. Because normal was overrated. Community was what mattered. Love was what lasted. The music swelled, the dancers whirled, and somewhere in the forest, the ancient spirits watched and learned their own lessons about the transformative power of mercy. This is where the story ends, but also where it truly begins. Because every ending is just another beginning in disguise. Every curse survived becomes strength earned. Every person saved becomes a world changed. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the power of community and the importance of showing up for others even when it's difficult, then share it. Tell someone who needs to hear that they're not alone, that curses can be broken, that love multiplies when offered freely. Subscribe for more stories that dig deep into what it means to be human, flawed, powerful, capable of both tremendous cruelty and astonishing compassion. Comment below with the name of someone who showed up for you when you needed them most. Let's honor the real-life heroes who choose connection over convenience, who say you belong when the world says you're wrong, who break curses not with magic, but with the simple, revolutionary act of caring. The fire burned low, the stars turned overhead, and in a small village called Bakari, two people who'd been lost found their way home, not to a place, but to each other, and to the community that refused to give up on them. That's real magic. That's the kind that lasts.